stream here. It says 1 viewer, but I think that's just me. I don't know how they count it. So this is Thursday in third period. If you're looking at the preview, you see it's like 10 seconds behind, which is why I don't have the sound preview on, because then it would be very distracting. This is starting our project for quarter 2. So last time I posted a notice that says, hey, we're going to do a live lesson once a week. It doesn't mean it's a huge, can't miss event. It's just a regular thing. I want to start making sure the people at home don't get behind and making sure they have a chance to follow along live, ask questions, etc. If you miss it, it's the same link to show the archive thing later, which is why I'm doing YouTube instead of Google Meet. I like the way it works with that. So we're going to have a project for this quarter. By the way, we're still doing that Scary Story project. If you haven't done that, it's still due. I mean, it's not quite as big as this one, but those are the two main things for the quarter. So I posted a new thing today, and I want to go over it. I'm not going to talk for the whole class. I don't want to make an hour-long video or anything, but I do want to introduce today. We're starting with the small part, and then we're building up to a big project. So, hey, would one of you guys close the door, please, just because of the sound of the dryer out there. Okay, so this quarter, we're going to do something with nonlinear stories. That means any story that tells one character in order straightforwardly would be called linear, meaning it's following a line. And then anything else is called nonlinear. So when you jump to another time, or you jump to another perspective, or you jump to another place, that might be nonlinear. So for example, if you start, and this is the most common way, you start near the end, and then you say, oh, well, here's how we got here. And in the middle of the story is like building up to the crucial moment. And then for the end, well, now we see what happens after that crucial moment. Another type is where you just have a story, and then in the middle you jump way forward and go to the future. You might think of like in a cartoon, whenever it does the like the clock moving super fast, or the SpongeBob narrator going 3 hours later, or something like that. And then another way to do it might be changing to another character. If we follow one person and then, hey, they die, or they get captured, or they get taken out of commission somehow, and then we switch to another character. Sometimes that can be the most surprising. I think the most famous example of that is the movie Psycho, where you have one character you're following for quite a while, and then boom, she dies, and then we have to figure out who the main character is now. So I'm going to use an example of the movie The Blind Side. You guys ever seen that? You know what I'm talking about? The one with Sandra Bullock. I have that in mind because a few years ago, my mom bought the DVD and just watched it all the time, and would take it into this room and show it on here, and then take it into this room. And so I saw it a bunch, and I was kind of absorbing the story and thinking about, well, why did they do it that way? So anyway, in that movie, if you're not sure, if you haven't seen it, it's about a high school kid who is homeless, but he gets adopted by this rich family and starts playing football and starts doing well and gets offers for colleges. And then at the end of that story, you start getting some conflict. You start getting a NCAA investigation about whether they accepted gifts that they shouldn't have, or you get a little shootout where like there's a gang that wants our guy to, I don't even remember what they want, but there's some kind of big fight near the end. But I think that would be saving it all for the end. If they just told it chronologically, if they told it in order, then you would have an hour of just people being nice like, hey, we're bringing in this new kid and he's doing well, and yeah, we have a couple of jokes, but there's not any huge problems until that stuff at the end, the investigation and the gang material. So instead of changing what they're showing, because A, it's a true story, they don't want to change it much, and B, my suspicion, I don't know, but my suspicion is that they filmed it all and then realized, wait a minute, we got a problem. What they did was they took apart from the end where the NCAA lawyer is questioning our main character and sort of putting him in a hard dilemma, and he's like, I don't know what to say. And they put that right at the beginning of the movie, where like that's either the first thing you see or the second thing you see. Then you flash back to the beginning and you see how he gets there. And so even when everybody's being nice and our guy is doing well and getting better, and there are a few sort of mild conflicts, like they have racist friends or whatever, but it's not built up as a big thing. It's more like, oh, there's a joke. They could have done that. They could have made that into the big conflict, but they didn't. Now you know what's waiting for them, at least, right? You know that there's going to be an investigation and there's going to be a problem. And so even when you're watching scenes that don't quite have enough conflict on their own, well, at least the story has conflict. Okay, so that's one example of the nonlinear storytelling to change the order you see things, making so that whenever you see a scene that may not have had enough on its own, well, at least you have knowledge to make it feel like there's conflict, to make it feel like there's a little bit of, danger, to spice it up. Okay, a lot of comedies do this. Comedies could be, violent and dangerous, but often they're not, and often they have a very light tone. So you might start with one really scary thing, and then for the rest of the movie you can be light, just because we know there's a scary thing out there. It colors the rest of the experience. So another example is this story that I posted last time, and I saw 2 or 3 of you guys are reading it on the Google Doc, but it's a very good story that I'd recommend. It's called The Rule of Names by Ursula Le Guin. She did a lot of sci-fi and a lot of fantasy in 60s and 70s. And this is a fantasy story. It's got a wizard, it's got a dragon, it's got all that good stuff. But it's also got a twist. Near the end, you realize, oh, this thing is not what I expected. And so it kind of rears the facts. This story is not told chronologically. It starts in the middle. It starts with our guy, Mr. Underhill is the main character. He's sort of almost like a Bilbo Baggins type at the beginning. He's kind of, very interested in getting the right food and having a nice routine, but he's not very powerful or special. And we see him go through the town and get his groceries, and that's nice because we start slow. We get to learn the rules. Obviously, the rule of names and the title, but every fantasy story has its own rules about like how the magic works and what kind of creatures there are, and you just need to stop and see that usually at the beginning of the story. Then it flashes back. Okay, I won't spoil it, but a guy shows up and says, hey, I'm looking for a dragon. And then he tells the story about what the dragon did and what the investigation is. And then boom, it comes out. We learn what's going on. They have a big fight, and the end happens. So this is a story where if they told it in order, it would be pretty boring. I kind of imagine what would happen if you just move the stuff around, and you wouldn't have enough mystery, you wouldn't have enough tension, and you wouldn't have enough like connection to the right characters. When the sort of good dragon hunter guy shows up in the middle, we know what he knows and we believe what he says, and that makes us feel connection to him. If it started way in the past and we knew what the dragon had done and how it was waiting for him and that kind of stuff, we wouldn't feel connected to him because we would just be like outside of his perspective, you know. So this helps in several ways, and I tried to give him some bullet points here, but it really wouldn't make sense until you've read it. So I would recommend you read the story and then look at these and go from there. So let me check. I was going to see if there's anything in the chat. I'm getting an error. It says there's not enough bandwidth connection, so that'll probably be kind of a low resolution video, so we'll figure out if we can do anything to fix that in the future. But anyway, we've got a few more minutes. I was aiming for about 15, and I'll take the last few minutes to talk about specifically today's assignment. So the quarter, you're going to write a story in a nonlinear way with a flashback or a jump forward or a jump in perspective. You might start over, or you might take one that you have from the first quarter. This would be good if we, start here and flashback or whatever. Either way, we'll work on that. I'll talk to people individually. I'll give you more steps to go through. But today I want to start with just like thinking about examples. So I gave one from a movie, I gave one from a story, and now I want you guys to think. One, what is an example of a story that does this? And you can use a book or a movie or something else. It should be something that has an ending, like a show that's still going or a comic series that never ends. It should be something with an ending because that's part of the story. But otherwise, you can choose anything you want. And then, of course, tell me about it. Don't just say like, oh, the anime, whatever, here's what happens, because I might not know it and I might not know what you're talking about. So give me a little summary of what happens and how they tell it. Maybe, 3 or 4 sentences. And then, what are the benefits? Why do you think the writers or the editors made it that way? By the way, when it's a movie, it's often the editor who will, put the stuff together and then go, wait a minute, this part's boring. This part needs some spice. I want to rearrange the stuff to make it work together. Which is what I think happened with The Blind Side. I don't know. Maybe if it's on the DVD special features or something, they talk about it, but that's just my assumption. So why do you think they did this? Did they do it to have more mystery or less mystery? Did they do it to have more conflict or less conflict? Did they want to focus on one character? Sometimes this can be bad. You don't want to just like make it come out of nowhere. But there are a lot of reasons why you might rearrange this stuff. And then 3, how would it be different if they didn't do that? If they just picked one character, followed them all the way through in order, no jumps, no nothing. Okay? Often what you'll see is you'll realize, wait, it would have been boring. If they just followed one character the whole way, it would have been very, it would have been lacking in all the stuff that made it good. For example, Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is one of those that starts at the end and then flashes back and then jumps to the diner. There's a scene in the diner in the beginning, and then you see everything that led up to it, and then there's a scene at the diner at the end where you see how it turned out. If they just followed John Travolta through the story in order to see him ending up there, it would be extremely bland. we wouldn't know like where Bruce Willis came from or why the people are robbing the diner or what he cares about or what he's going to see later. It would be really strange. Often you think about what would happen if they went in order and you go, oh yeah, that would be nonsense. So that's the plan. You could do this in a Google Doc and attach it, and you could take a minute to read this story if you want. And if you like fantasy, this is kind of the first fantasy we've had in here, so I've been trying to add some of that in there. That's it for now. I'm gonna